Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Hello, music lovers, and welcome back to a new album fight. It is me, your host, Mike LePerry, and we have the final showdown for our cover song mixtape battle. That's right. These two lists have gone through the trenches and have emerged as our two final fighters. Before I get started on the matchup itself, I'm going to do a quick run through, mainly to thank all of the people that submitted mixtapes. So our first round, we went through Todd Nimitz and Brian Tice, with Todd taking the victory. Mike in Fresno went up against me, Mike LePerry, and I won that one. D in Colorado went up against Corey Farley. Corey won that one. And then John Hedstrom went up against Dan Ruppert, and Dan won that matchup. In our second round, we had Todd Nimitz, who won in the first round, taking on Tim Furnish. Tim won that matchup. We had me taking on Phil Green, and I won that matchup. We had Corey, who had also won in the first round, taking on Dan Ruppert's second submission, and Corey won that pretty handily. And finally, Dan had won in round one with his first list, and took on Jay Brown and pulled out a victory there. If you listened to our semifinals already, semifinal matchup number one was Dan Ruppert versus Tim Furnish, and Dan had won that one, and he is one of our two lists in this final. And then Corey Farley took on me. He handed me my lunch, and I went down in flames. So we now have our matchup here with Dan taking on Corey. And now we'll take it over to Phil for Phil's corner call. Phil, who do we have in the ring today?
Today's album fight is the 10-round mixtape finals between two playlists of cover songs. In the red corner, with classics from the Beatles, Jeff Buckley, and the Animals, we have the mixtape from Corey Farley. And the opponent in the blue corner, with deeper cuts from the Fugees, Goldfinger, and Soft Cell, we have the mixtape from Dan Ruppert. Let's get ready to ramble. Take it away, judges.
I do have some statistics. We had 12 lists, 10 songs each, so that's 120 songs. Out of that 120, 78 songs were unique, as in only appearing on one list, while we had 42 submissions that actually appeared on multiple lists. When you get down to these two lists, Corey's and Dan's, Corey has 4 songs that only appear on his list and 6 that appeared on others, while Dan split it evenly. Half of his songs were only on his list and half of them appeared on others. We actually have 2 songs that are on both of these lists, and we'll get to that when we get into the details. And talking about details, let's kick it over to Richard Lackey for our pre-fight analysis. Richard, what do the numbers tell us?
Okay, well, here we are at the cover mixtape finals, and I made a bold prediction at the end of the last episode, and let's see if that holds up after I did some more in-depth analysis of the numbers. Now, truth be told, this is very difficult with mixtapes, like I've said before. You're essentially taking greatest hits songs, or even in some cases, the song most associated with the band, and putting them up against each other, which means you have a lot of ties. Also, I can't look over a lot of the album information and review information that I have for the album fights, so we have to go just kind of purely based on popularity. But we got some interesting info out of that. We have 3 separate categories. I will say this. Playlist B won technically every one of those categories. Now, it won, but not necessarily by a specific majority or anything. So let's just look at it. In category 1, Playlist B had 5 votes, G had 3 votes, and 2 ties, which means B could win by a significant margin, or they could tie. In category 2, B had 3 votes, G had 1 vote, and ties had 6. Again, it could be a really kind of a blowout for either one of them, or it could end up in a tie. And in the third category, which was the most bizarre one, pretty much it was dead even except for one single round. And that was Killing Me Softly versus Last Kiss, where Killing Me Softly won. So B got 1 point, G got 0, and there were 14 ties. So again, that could be a blowout on either one of those, or it could be a tie. These are both very, very good mixtapes. I have no reason to think one of these is going to just walk away as a blowout. The numbers, when you start adding things up, or you start averaging and those kind of factors, make this a very, very close. I think we might even have a split decision here. But it looks to me like B has the slight edge here. So, prediction, B, just barely. Back to you guys.
Yeah, these are tough. It is kind of a greatest hits thing. I know you've said that a few times, but it bears repeating.
Hey, this is Pete. Real quick, I just want to let you guys know we are proud to announce our official support of Save the Brave, a certified nonprofit 501c3 with a charter of helping veterans with post-traumatic stress. Here's how you can help. Go to SaveTheBrave.com, click on the link on the website, and my recommendation is this. Subscribe. Give them $20 a month. You've got subscriptions that you can turn off right now that you're not using that are $20 a month. Swap that out. Get involved. Let's help these folks out.
Yeah, these are tough. It is kind of a greatest hits thing. I know you've said that a few times, but it bears repeating. Of course, what is an album fight without judges? It is not an album fight. So let me introduce our judges real quick. I'll start with Tony Alvarado. Tony is a seasoned veteran of the album fight. Tony, what were your thoughts going into this one?
Well, on this album fight, it was when I got the lists ahead of time, I'm looking at them and I immediately picked out the 2 that they had in common, which I know we'll get to in a little bit. But they are definitely a cornucopia of music endeavors here, and it's going to be very exciting to see how they stack up against them track by track.
Yeah, I am definitely looking forward to this one as well. I've listened to the songs on here so many times at this point. They're becoming familiar friends. Talking about familiar friends, Mike McCloskey is making his way back into the tuxedo t-shirt. Mike, how are you feeling about this matchup?
I'm good. I think when I look at the list of the 10 songs that we're all looking at across both mixtapes, it really reminds me of different eras or different time periods in life. You see 80s, 90s today, jumping back into other periods of time as well. But for the most part, it definitely connects me to different points in my life. So it'll be interesting to see how this one shakes out, Mike.
Yeah, I know. When looking at the matchups, I saw there are some rounds with some symmetry and then some rounds where we've got just completely different genres, completely different time periods, but some really good songs just across the board. I'll introduce our third judge. That would be me. We unfortunately had our judge drop out at the last minute, and I will have to be pinch hitting in. So I will be taking up that third slot. And I have rambled enough. So it is time for us to move into round 1. We have The House of the Rising Sun by The Animals. Original artist, arguably, it's an old folk song, but arguably Tom Clarence Ashley and Gwen Foster. And that goes up against Can't Take My Eyes Off of You by Lauryn Hill. The original artist, of course, Mr. Frankie Valli. Mike, I have you up first this time.
Well, I appreciate you throwing me to the wolves on this one. I think I'm going to start off on Can't Take My Eyes Off of You by Lauryn Hill, partly because I feel like when artists redo Motown to the extent that, or the 50s, I guess, to the extent that she does, it really comes off rough with that initial kind of doo-woppy type chorus. And I think because of that, it just set my earbuds back a little bit in terms of the overall song. And then you put that up against a classic haunting song like House of the Rising Sun by the Animals. And I think that one has always stuck with me, or that band has stuck with me since really the mid-'80s when, filmmakers started to revisit Vietnam and, all of the, whether it was Platoon or Hamburger Hill or whatever, and you had the Animals, and then you had House of the Rising Sun, you had We Can't Get Out of This Place. All of those songs pop up about the same time back in a childhood of mine that was soaking up music at that point in time. It just was no contest for me in terms of the structure of the song, the sound. I went 10-9 in favor of the Animals on that one.
Okay. I really can't argue with that, as I'm the next judge, and my assessment, I think maybe I gave Can't Take My Eyes Off of You a little bit more credit, but my score was also the same, 10-9 in favor of the House of the Rising Sun. And one of the reasons I really like House of the Rising Sun is it seems to be kind of a pan-generational song. And what I mean by that is we had a party a while back. It was a big family party, and my kids invited friends over. They were playing some music in the backyard, and I heard this song coming through their iPhone at one point, quizzical, like, wow, what are my late teen, early 20 kids doing listening to this song? But they were really digging it. It's just such a strong vocal performance from Eric Burdon, and just so well constructed, and really just steals the song from the original artist. And as I said, arguably original artist, 'cause it's really hard to pin down where this song originally came from. Can't Take My Eyes Off You. Lauryn Hill is no slouch. I think she really does a fantastic job. Again, vocally, she does great. I don't think that she eclipses Frankie Valli, but that would be pretty hard to do. So overall, both good songs, both a good way to start a list, but House of the Rising Sun is just, no pun intended, an animal of a song, so it wins this round. Tony, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm pretty much along with you guys. I thought the Animals version of House of the Rising Sun, I just love the melody. I just love how it's just, I don't know, I thought it was kind of like dirge-like in a way, and as it goes along telling the story. If you listen to the lyrics, it's almost a story that many people can relate to, so that's kind of cool. I love the vocals. Holy smokes, those are really good vocals. I think it's a simple song, but very, very effective. With Lauryn Hill's version of Can't Take My Eyes Off You, I like her voice. I like the sampling of the original in the background, but my issues with everything else, I thought they made it too complicated. In this case, I don't think it stood a chance. I went with the Animals as well, 10-9.
All right, so we have round one in the books, and it is a unanimous round. Things are looking good in round one for Corey. Let's see if Corey can keep the momentum going into round two. We have Twist and Shout by the Beatles in the style of the Isley Brothers. This song has been recorded a gazillion times, I think. And that's going up against Blinded by the Light by Manfred Mann's Earth Band, original artist Bruce the Boss Springsteen. Tony, you're up first.
All right, so I'll start with Manfred Mann. So I'm actually a big fan of the Springsteen version. Springsteen's one of my favorite artists. And when I first heard the Springsteen version a long time ago, I heard it after the Manfred Mann version, and I was like, "Whoa, this sounds pretty cool." And then I finally put the two together. I was like, "Oh, this Springsteen did it first." But I thought Springsteen's arrangement was really good. I thought Manfred Mann's Earth Band, their arrangement was a little too complicated, a little too like mid-70s for me. I liked the crescendo of the arrangement between the chorus and the verses, and you can tell they definitely added their own touch to the song, but it just didn't really play for me that well. You put it up against Twist and Shout. You got an iconic band recording this super fun song. Lennon's vocals on this song I thought were great. It always makes me think of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, so that's always a plus. And I thought they did a great job in maintaining the integrity of the original version of the song. Yeah, I gave this one to the Beatles 10-9.
Yep, can't argue with that. Mike, you're second in this round. What are your thoughts? Agree, disagree?
It stinks that Tony took my Ferris Bueller's Day Off reference, because as much as I can hear Blinded by the Light in my head forever based on the Manfred Mann's version of the song, I'll say I'll give it 10-9 to the Beatles based on the version of their song, but I gotta say it's based on where I was in my life at that point in time with, watching Ferris Bueller's Day Off in 1986 or whenever it first came out, and subsequently with, my 11 and 9-year-old, like recently, you know, watching that song come over and just listening to the fun sound of that song. 10-9 for the Beatles in that one. And this is coming from a guy that, you know, loves the Stones over the Beatles like 9 times out of 10. So this is kind of a tough one for me because I'm not a Beatles fan. But when I look at both of those songs, that one just stands up better, and I've enjoyed it more. So
that's totally fair. Great assessment. I think if you have even a little bit of gray hair and you hear Twist and Shout, the words Ferris Bueller are going to come out of your mouth at some point. I think it was on everybody's notes every time the song comes up. And obviously, there was a big influence on me liking the song more. But when the first time I heard it, when it was in Ferris Bueller's, I grew up on the Beatles. And while I do love the Stones, I am more of a Beatles than a Stones guy. I'm also not a real big fan of a big chunk of what came out of the 70s. As far as music goes. And Blinded by the Light has a lot of what I don't like about the 70s, that, you know, those space effects and things like that. It's a great song for its time, and I think in an earlier album fight, I think I actually gave the round to them because for their genre, it's a great song. But it is not a better song than Twist and Shout. It's not a better transformation. It doesn't have as much energy. It's not ownership of someone else's song to the extent Twist and Shout is. A lot of people think that this is a Beatles song, that it's not a cover, because that is now the version everybody knows. Of course, Blinded by the Light, I think, might be the same in that a lot of people don't even know it's a Bruce Springsteen song. But overall, the vocal performance of John Lennon alone in this song should win it, and for me it did. 10-9, Twist and Shout. That finishes round 2, which is also a unanimous round for Corey. So Dan's got some work to do here. And as we head into round 3, let's see if we can break the tie. So round 3 is Walk This Way by Run DMC, original artist Aerosmith, going up against Tainted Love by Soft Cell, original artist Gloria Jones. And looks like I get to go first here. So let's start with Walk This Way. Walk This Way was, for a lot of teenagers back in the 80s, maybe your first exposure to rap. It also was a launching pad, for better or for worse, for Aerosmith's big comeback in the 80s. Which, while it led to some decent songs, it also led to I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. So, mixed bag there. Tainted Love was a song that I didn't realize until way after the 80s were over was a cover song. And listening to the original, it was definitely a transformative song. That is one of the things I at least try to look for in a cover is, did they take ownership of it? And I don't mean like taking it away from the original artist as much as I mean owning it in their own genre or owning it in their own style. So, you know, taking a song, say Duran Duran taking a song and making it more of a Duran Duran song than whoever the original artist was. So something like that. And I really think Soft Cell did that. Soft Cell kind of vanished, but this song was on the radio forever. I did have a little bit of ear fatigue, which worked against it a bit. But in the end, in a kind of close round, I ended up giving this one to Tainted Love, 10-9, over Walk This Way. And Tony, you're up next. Do you think I'm completely full of crap?
I don't think you're completely full of it, but I am going to go the other way on this. I love Tainted Love. I think Mark Allman hits this song right out of the park. I think it's just a great 80s cover song. I really like the extended version the most when they tack on Where Did Our Love Go with it. I think that's fantastic. Walk This Way song, I don't know, man. It didn't work for me. Like, I like Run DMC and I really like Aerosmith, but putting them together was not the best combination in my opinion. The drum beat is total hip hop, but then I think that's where the hip hop in the whole song ends. I thought the song was way too long. I think it's 90 seconds longer than the original. I think the end just drags. I don't like the part in the middle of the song where Steven Tyler and Run DMC are like saying 2 words each while they're singing the lyrics. I didn't like that at all. It's like, just pick a verse and sing it and let the other guy pick a verse and sing it and call it a day. And you're right. It totally it's like a springboard for Aerosmith the back half of their career. I just thought it was really forced. I gave this one to Soft Cell 10-9.
Okay, so actually we did agree.
Oh yeah, we did. Oh my, we did agree. You're right.
I mean, I'm often full of shit anyways, but
it looks like we both are in this case. Then maybe
let's kick it over to Mike here, and he can tell us both we're full of shit. Mike.
Well, it seems like I'm the only one that actually went to the Run DMC version of this one. But listening to both of you talk about it could lead me to re-question my scoring, but I'm not going to do that because I'll have some sort of integrity when we do this thing. But I think you guys both mentioned, a couple of things when you look at a cover song, and it's like, does the artist own it, right? And up until recently, probably doing this homework for this podcast, didn't realize that really Soft Cell didn't own Tainted Love, right? And I think that's probably one of the biggest compliments you can give to an artist when you look at the song that they're covering by somebody else, and whether or not they made it their own. And up until now, I hear Tainted Love in my head, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to rock out to this one for the next 3.5, 4 minutes, and I'm going to be happy thinking back to the early '80s, and I'll be good to go. When I look at Walk This Way, I hate to do this, but I think I reverted back to, in some ways, childhood. In that, I was like, okay, hey, I remember seeing these guys on, MTV. It was the whole Rick Rubin creation between Run DMC, bringing Aerosmith back together. And really, Aerosmith at that point in time wasn't Aerosmith. They really forced Perry and Tyler back together. It's pre-sobriety for them, whether that's good for them or not. You guys mentioned that whole Diane Warren awful song from Armageddon that shouldn't be named in terms of the Aerosmith catalog, but it is out there regardless. And I think just thinking back to the whole mid-'80s and MTV and seeing videos and seeing how that played out really drove me to go 10-9 Aerosmith over Soft Cell with Tainted Love.
Wasn't that Armageddon song Aerosmith's only #1 hit?
It might have.
That is correct.
That is dreadful. For such a great band like Aerosmith, that's terrible.
Guilty pleasure. I do like, let's see, Love in an Elevator is one of the songs that I hate to admit I like, but I do.
But at least they wrote that song.
Yeah.
They didn't write the Armageddon song. That's the killer of the whole thing, right? They got a #1 song off a song that somebody else wrote.
Yeah, that is sad. I didn't realize that was their only #1 song. But music industry can be tough sometimes, as we judges can be as well. And that takes us into round 4, where we have Ball of Confusion by Love and Rockets, original artist The Temptations, versus the second appearance of House of the Rising Sun by the Animals, original artist, again, arguably, Tom, Clarence Ashley, and Gwen Foster. We have Mike up first for round 4. You get to lead us off.
Thanks, Mike. This one was tough for me, partly because as I saw the band name Love and Rockets, I kept banging my head against the wall. I'm like, what else did these guys sing? And so I had to go do a whole bit of Google research to figure out, where does this name ring a bell? Because the Ball of Confusion song wasn't it. And I think they suffered from a similar feat that I mentioned when Lauryn Hill took on Frankie Valli. I think you've got to really be able to do, Motown in the 50s well to make it sound convincing. And I was just struggling hearing them pull this through. And then when I juxtapose that against House of the Rising Sun, which I gave a 10 in the first round, it still is that classic haunting, 60s sounding song. I just brought the 10 forward and I said, hey, it wasn't better than Ball of Confusion, and therefore, I'm going to give it 10-9 to Dan.
Fair enough. I'm up next here. I could give you a dozen Love and Rockets songs right off the top of my head. They were probably my favorite band, at least at some point during my high school years. So it's really hard for me to do any round that has Love and Rockets in it. However, when you look at these two songs, again, that transformative piece comes up. And House of the Rising Sun is just pure ownership of this song. And I definitely am going to give it the winning score in this round, 10-9. However, I will tell you about Love and Rockets. Again, Love and Rockets was an offshoot of the original goth band Bauhaus. And this song was a song that they were just goofing around when they were considering doing a Bauhaus reunion, and the original singer never showed up. And they ended up goofing around on this song for a while, and it became a track that they laid down, and it led to their first album as Love and Rockets. So from a personal history perspective, I have to at least give this one a 9. because it's a song that's meaningful to the music that they made later. And I would strongly encourage everyone listening to check out Love and Rockets' catalog, because they put out some really great music back in the late 80s, early 90s. Over to you, Tony.
So I'm going to take everything that I said at the beginning of this album fight and pretty much throw it right in the garbage can, because I really liked this Ball of Confusion song. I actually didn't remember the original one, so I went back and listened to the original and then listened to the Love and Rockets version. And I mean, I wasn't a huge Love and Rockets fan. My roommate in college was a big Love and Rockets fan, and he turned me on to them. And like, I love No New Tale to Tell. That song is fantastic. But I really liked what they did with it. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was completely new wave. I thought the vocals were really good. I thought the style was good. I enjoyed it. I put down that it's about 2 minutes longer than the original, but I didn't notice it. And there's some bands, I've spoke about this in an earlier album fight, there's some bands that are really good at making 7-minute songs and you don't even know they're 7 minutes long. And then there's some bands who make 7-minute songs and it is just horrible about halfway to the end. And this song was 6 minutes long. I couldn't even tell. As much as I like House of the Rising Sun, I gave this one to Love and Rockets because I thought it was innovative and I thought they did a really cool version of the song.
Okay, so that ends round 4 with a split decision and takes us into round 5, where we have Nothing Compares to You, Sinead O'Connor, original artist Prince. That goes up against I Love Rock and Roll by Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, original artist The Arrows, and this is a damn good song going up against a really damn good song. Tony, you get to lead this one off. Good luck.
All right, so I Love Rock and Roll. This, we mentioned about taking ownership of a song. I had no idea this was a cover song either. And so once again, listen to the original, was surprised, and then listen to and I just think Joan Jett just kicks it on this song. It's simple, it's easy, it's iconic, and you hear that riff, and that's what you're just thinking Joan Jett right off the hop. So with Nothing Compares to You, though, it's not that Joan Jett recorded a horrible song. She recorded a great song. I just think Sinead O'Connor just crushes this song. I think it's the best song she ever recorded. The musical accompaniment is perfect, I think, for the tone of the song. Just really quiet. I enjoyed that. I thought the vocals were unbelievable. I think you can hear the emotion just coming right through the song. I gave it to Sinead 10-9.
And that totally works. I don't know you're going to get much argument from me, but I'm not next. Mike is. Mike, any arguments here?
No, I have zero arguments in terms of the scoring. I went 10-9 as well. I hate to bring this up, but Joan Jett's one of those artists for me that is always head scratching in terms of, how did she end up in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with such a thin catalog? But I think it comes down to songs like this, maybe a few of her times with the Runaways. But I think at the end of the day, as much as I dislike Joan Jett, I think that Sinead O'Connor owns this song more than the other way around, and it just turns out better. And I don't necessarily love Sinead O'Connor, but when I compare these two songs, I like her version better than Joan Jett's, and that's why I went 10-9.
Yep, and I am up last. I really don't have a whole lot different to say. It was a long time before I knew I Love Rock and Roll was a cover. That is pure ownership, but it was also a very obscure song that she chose to cover. Regardless, it's a great performance by Joan Jett. The Blackhearts are band. I wouldn't necessarily call them a great band, but they're a good band. Nothing Compares to You is Sinead O'Connor's shining moment. She's done some good work. She had done some good work pre. She's done some good work post. But really, that's kind of the apex of her career, not just from a popularity perspective, but I think from a delivery perspective. And hard to top. It's really a song that just takes you somewhere else. Depending on whether you're listening to it just in the car or if you're listening to it to listen to music, is definitely a song that can just pull your mind elsewhere. And the emotional impact of her singing can't be denied. So hard to say no to I Love Rock and Roll. It's a classic song, but it just doesn't hold a candle to Nothing Compares. So 10-9 for me as well.
Do you guys think it's better than the Prince version? Because I certainly do.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, the Prince version was actually in one of our mixtapes from the last time we did a mixtape competition. And everybody criticized the person who put that tape together for not picking the Sinead version, instead picking the Prince version.
wow.
So, yeah, I would say definitely, in my opinion, better. Mike?
No, I absolutely think the Sinead version's better than the Prince version. I think when we go back to, certain songs and who owns it, and we'll get to a couple of those as we get further into this list, she owns that song. I think, Guns N' Roses, to lack of a better word, owns Knocking on Heaven's Door, at least in my eyes. There's certain people and certain artists that own that original song, and when you hear it, you think of them. She is that when you talk about Nothing Compares to You.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that does take us to the halfway point. So what I usually like to do halfway through is at least do a quick tally of scores. We have Corey's mixtape really at a comfortable lead right now, 7 points over Dan's, which means roughly 2 points per judge. So it looks like Dan is going to have to really kick it into gear on the second half of his mixtape to bridge that distance.
Hey, this is P.A. Turner from Lions Rock Productions. We create podcasts around here, and if you, your brand, or your company want to figure out how to do a podcast, just talk to me. I'll give you the advice on the right gear, the best plan, and show you how to take a podcast that makes sense for you, that's sustainable, that's scalable, and fun. Hit me up at pete@breakitdownshow.com. Let me help. I want to hear about it.
So it looks like Dan is going to have to really kick it into gear on the second half of his mixtape to bridge that distance. Guys, start with Tony. What do you think halfway through about Corey being off to a lead over Dan?
I don't see it as completely unexpected. He picked some really good songs. I thought that Walk This Way just was in a spot. I mean, I don't personally like it, but it went against a song that's, a great 80s cover song. And I'm not really surprised after we talk about it and go through and list our reasons. I'm not surprised at all. He's picked some solid songs.
Yeah, Mike?
No, I'm right there with Tony. I mean, you start off with the Animals with House of Rising Sun. You go into the Beatles with Twist and Shout. Follow it up with Walk This Way. I mean, that's a tough, 3 of 5 songs. You throw in Nothing Compares to You that we just said was better than the Prince version. That's a tough starting spot, regardless of where, you bring in some of the Lauryn Hill, the Man for Man, a little bit of the different version of the songs coming in. It's just hard to pull back or to, overcome what I think is a better way of saying it, overcome the first 5 at this point in the battle.
Yeah, and I think song order has a lot to do with it too. In the way one song sets up the next and sets up the next. That's so important in regular albums. An artist's full album. It was always important to me in mixtapes back in the day when I used to make mixtapes, is to really think which songs should go next to each other, not just what songs should go on the tape. But we're digressing and rambling. We do that a lot, and that's good for the show, but let's keep things moving forward, and let's take us into round 6, where we have Mrs. Robinson by the Lemonheads, original artists, Simon and Garfunkel, going up against Smooth Criminal by Alien Ant Farm, original artist Michael Jackson. And look at that, I lead this one off. So, wow, this was a tough round for me, and I'll tell you why. I think both of these songs really transform without stealing, which is one of those things that I really respect out of a cover song. I remember the first time I heard Smooth Criminal, so I'll start with Alien Ant Farm. And I immediately knew what song it was from the very first frenetic guitar strumming. Because you just know. If you know Smooth Criminal as a song, as soon as you hear that, dun, 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 you just know that's what it is. But I was like, this isn't Michael Jackson. And I just loved it from the get-go. I did think that there was just a smidge of irony maybe in this. I don't see these guys as being huge Michael Jackson fans. I'm really thinking that they did it as a bit of irony, which I don't like. But other than that, it's a great song. But if you look at Mrs. Robinson by the Lemonheads, first of all, you can't take on Simon and Garfunkel without really putting some work into it. But they take a great song, maybe a little bit of a nerdy song, but certainly a great song. They speed it up, but they still don't completely take it away from the original version of it. They turn it into kind of a happy grunge song, if there's such a thing. It really just when I listen to this version of Mrs. Robinson, I'm happy when I'm done listening to it. It's kind of uplifting, and it was really hard to come up with a tiebreaker here. I know I saw this in a movie, and I think that might be in the back of my head what kicked it over to the Lemonheads, but I did give this one to Mrs. Robinson 10-9 over Smooth Criminal, but barely. Tony, you're up next. Maybe you can help me remember what movie I saw that in.
You know, I was trying to remember it as well. I know it's on the album It's a Shame About Ray. That's all I can remember right now, which is one of my favorite albums of the time period. I'm pretty much in agreement with you here. I'm not the biggest Michael Jackson fan, but like you said, once you hear that riff, that opening riff from Smooth Criminal, you know that that's what the song is. It's solid, but I like what the Lemonheads did with Mrs. Robinson and speeding it up. Everything that you said, I completely agree with. It does make me feel happy when I hear it. I went 10-9 Lemonheads.
Cool. Mike, agree, disagree?
Ooh, I am disagreeing with both of you. Not because I dislike the Lemonheads version, because, you know, that really is early high school for me, and it just resonated in terms of the sound, the period, you know, changing, you know, really what was a folk artist duo with Simon and Garfunkel into something that was a lot more aggressive, a lot more faster paced, a lot more contemporary at the time. I love the song. When I look at Smooth Criminal, I think I looked at the campiness of that and didn't look at it as a negative thing and how they were playing Michael Jackson, but really looked at it in terms of more the bass and the drums and the rock kind of guts of that band playing, you know, Smooth Criminal and going faster and doing a little bit more aggressively. And I think because of that, I really liked how they sped it up, how they moved it forward, and chose Smooth Criminal 10-9 over Mrs. Robinson, even though at the end of the day, I loved both songs. I think when I compared both of them at this point in time, happened to like Smooth Criminal a little bit better for the longer period of time. So that's why I went with that direction.
Yeah, this was a tough one. I don't begrudge you going against us. Besides, split rounds are better than unanimous rounds. They make for some better editorial.
Yeah, I think that was in The Wolf of Wall Street, from what I'm looking at.
I was trying to look stuff up too, and yeah, I think you're right, Wolf of Wall Street. I know I saw it somewhere. All right, that takes us over to round 7. Mike, you're up first here. We've got Hallelujah by Jeff Buckley. Original artist Leonard Cohen going up against 99 Red Balloons by Goldfinger. Original artist Nina. Take it away.
This was kind of a dagger, not a dagger of a round in that it was hard, because the Jeff Buckley version of that song is so much better. I think when I looked at his version, it took a good, you know, minute and 20 seconds before you really got into the guts of the song. When you listen to Hallelujah, yeah, his voice, the music, it is the better song in every way. I cannot complain there. When I go to 99 Red Balloons with Goldfinger, I think I still come back to me being a kid and hearing Nena, whether it's in German or English, singing that song repeatedly over and over from now until the sun came down. And I think it resonated, but I didn't like it as much. I think the Jeff Buckley version, and Jeff was an amazing, you know, singer, guitarist, you know, artist. You know, I went 10-9 in favor of Buckley with Hallelujah over, you know, 99 Red Balloons.
Yeah, this for me was not a real tough round either. I think there's a little bit of carryover from last round on the irony piece for 99 Red Balloons. And I respect Goldfinger's version, and I really like that they segue into the German 99 Luftballons in the middle of the song. Whether they were being ironic or not, they definitely put together a very good cover, a very good tribute to the song. But Hallelujah, good God. Honestly, I'd never heard of Jeff Buckley up until a certain point, which, you know, everybody discovers artists in their own time. But I heard this, and I'm not even sure where I heard it. It might have just been someone playing it for me. And I just went out and looked for everything I could find by Jeff Buckley afterwards. And there are some songs on this album that are just amazing vocal performances, and his guitar work is stunning. Really gone too soon. And he owns this more than Leonard Cohen. He owns this more than Rufus Wainwright. He owns this more than John Cale. He owns it more than everybody who's ever done it. It's really his song at this point. And you can't go up against this performance. It's just haunting and beautiful and untouchable. So The fact that I gave a 9 to 99 Red Balloons is respect. 10-9, hallelujah. Tony.
I have absolutely no arguments with either one of your assessments. I agree completely. I think that this is the best cover version of the song ever. And I use the same words, that haunting and beautiful, to describe Hallelujah. And then with 99 Red Balloons, same thing. I like how they throw the German verse in there, but yeah, it's just not even close. 10-9, Hallelujah.
Yeah, so we got another unanimous round here for Corey. Things are looking a little rough for Dan. He's I think Mick needs to cut him over the eye. As we head into round 8, as we often call the Burford round, where often in regular albums, at least, there's a little ear fatigue going on. Let's see if there's any ear fatigue going on in this mixed list. We have round 8. The Man Who Sold the World, Nirvana, original artist, the immortal David Bowie, going up against All Along the Watchtower by Jimi Hendrix, original artist Bob Dylan, what is often called the best cover of all time. Tony, you're up first. Have fun with this one.
Oh yeah, this was a tough one for me. As far as All Along the Watchtower goes, I don't think you can say anything more that hasn't been said. This song is it's Jimi Hendrix's song. It's iconic. His guitar is great. His vocals are great. It's almost a perfect song. Man Who Sold the World. So I remember watching the Unplugged show when this came out, because there was a big deal, and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch it. And then when they broke into this song, I was pretty much floored. I was impressed by how it sounded. I thought the vocals were great. I thought the violin sounds were really good. I enjoyed the performance so much that I went out and bought the album as soon as I could. So credit to Nirvana there, but I mean, you're going against All Along the Watchtower by Jimi Hendrix. You're going to have to put together something a little bit better. So 10-9 Hendrix.
Well said. Mike, have anything to add to that?
So I think this may be our first knockdown of the entire battle. I think what Tony said with All Along the Watchtower, in terms that it's a perfect song, not just a perfect cover, but it's a perfect song, because we will hear that version of All Along the Watchtower for the next 50 years. It really knocked Nirvana down. Don't get me wrong. I like the Nirvana song, was never a huge fan when they were at their peak, candidly, because I think it was because I was struggling for, a return of more 80s hair metal into the 90s, but that's just my cross that I'll bear to this day. It's still a great song, but I think at the end of the day, Watchtower is Hendrix, and it's one of his greatest songs. You don't even think of Bob Dylan when you think of Watchtower. Because of that, I really thought it was a 10-8 round when it came down to it. And I think when you look at Dan, I mean, it's probably Dan's strongest song on his entire playlist at this point. So
I can't argue with that. That takes it to me and my assessment here. I will start by kind of going back to the well as I started out the album Fight itself, and pull some numbers up. The biggest number is the number 4. And the number 4 is the number of the 12 lists that All Along the Watchtower appeared on. It is the only song that was on 4 lists. There were a few others, including a couple on these 2 lists that were on 3. But this song literally made the most appearances in this contest. That goes a long way to telling you just how iconic it is. And I listened a lot, because I really, really do like all of Nirvana Unplugged, but really The Man Who Sold the World and Where Did You Sleep Last Night were songs that kind of got me more into Nirvana than I had been with just Smells Like Teen Spirit, drew everybody else in. I think that this performance by Nirvana by Kurt Cobain is really visceral, very emotional, and going up against anything else it would have won. But All Along the Watchtower is just kind of untouchable in this class, in this category that we're doing right now. So I gave this one to Jimi Hendrix, 10-9. 9 is a very respectful number for Nirvana to get. And that takes us to the penultimate round here, and the penultimate round means a lot in this fight because of what happens in the final round. I don't want to spoil it for the listeners, but round 9, we have Last Kiss by Pearl Jam, original artist Wayne Cochran, and that goes up against Killing Me Softly by the Fugees, original artist Roberta Flack. And looks like I get to lead this one off. So, Last Kiss. Ooh, yeah, okay. In the last semifinal, Last Kiss went up against The Cure doing Hello, I Love You by The Doors. And what all of us realized as we were going through it was it would have been a lot better if Pearl Jam had done the Doors song and The Cure had done Last Kiss, because Pearl Jam is kind of out of their element here. You know, it's an old 50s song. I'd heard it a dozen times. It's one of my dad's favorite songs. He tended to like songs where girl meets boy, boy meets girl, girl dies. I don't know. It's just the way he likes music, I guess. Anyways, it's just this doo-wop 50s song, and Pearl Jam just doesn't get it. I don't buy it. It's not bad, but it's just not them staying in their lane. It feels like a stretch, and I liked it a lot more the first time I heard it. Listening to it again years later, I was kind of underwhelmed. And then you go across the way to Killing Me Softly by the Fugees, which arguably put the Fugees on the map, certainly gave us Lauryn Hill and lots of great performances later on from her. The Roberta Flack version of Killing Me Softly is no slouch. It won Grammys. But the Fugees take this song and respectfully transform it. And what I mean by that is they've transformed it into their style of music without ruining the original and paying respect to what the original song was, a great ballad. But they add a little bit of hip hop to it because that's their style, but they don't ruin it by that. So for me, this was an easy round, actually. I didn't have enough against Last Kiss to make it a knockdown, but it was getting close. Definitely easy win for the Fugees, Killing Me Softly, 10-9. Tony, you're next.
Okay, so I'm gonna be really boring this time. I thought Pearl Jam, when they did this song, I thought they did it okay, but I didn't sense that they really wanted to take any chances. And so it really sounds a lot like the original. Killing Me Softly, I think, is one of the best recordings that the Fugees ever did. I also like how they gave the original, I said, they gave the original a big dose of hip hop. And it works in this case. It didn't really work with the Frankie Valli song to me, but it worked with this song. I thought Lauryn Hill's voice was outstanding. I gave it to Fugees 10-9.
Great. And Mike, agree, disagree with us?
I'm opposite you guys. I went 10-9 Pearl Jam, but I think it 100% has to do with my preference in music. I enjoy Pearl Jam more than the Fugees. I've never enjoyed the Fugees. It's not that their albums aren't great. They don't sound well. I think at the end of the day, it came down to preference, and I just picked 10-9 Pearl Jam.
That's fair. We get to be judgy because we are judges. And with that said, that takes us into the final round, round 10. Corey and Dan are going to meet in the middle, touch gloves, and have the same damn song going up against each other. So I think they're both tired and they're just going to dance around the ring for the next few minutes. We have Hurt versus Hurt. That's right. The timeless Johnny Cash cover of Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails' original song Hurt. We have Mike lined up to go first in this round. How did you differentiate between the exact same song and the exact same song?
I have zero way to differentiate. I apologize. I went 10-10. It's the same song, the same artist. It's not a different mix. It's not a different production value. They're both good. I had zero way to do it. So I unfortunately tied them at 10-10.
All right. Well, I will let Tony go last, and I will take the middle section here. As Pete often says, cutting the baby, I'm going to take the middle. I'll take the middle piece. I thought long and hard about this. I actually talked to Pete about this because when he did his CompuBox score, he actually did give it to one versus the other. And he said it was really about song selection and song order on the list leading up to it. I looked really long and hard at a way to differentiate because, song order does mean something. And as we do album fights, and I've done quite a few of these now, probably 20-ish, ear fatigue becomes something. You're listening to music and you're either looking forward to the next song or kind of, oh God, what's next? But I really did look at I looked at the last 4 songs leading up to, and I don't think that either Corey or Dan really did a significantly better job of setting up the final. So even though I did look into that as my differentiator, I just couldn't come up with a clear winner. So yes, I took the coward's path as well. I scored it as a tie. But I think we should also talk about the song itself. But I will let Mike and I kind of hold our opinions on the song until Tony gives us his score, because I think he did a little bit something different. Tony.
Yeah, I gave this one to Corey's version of Johnny Cash's version of Hurt, 10-9. And the reason why I gave it to this is I took the list. It's actually kind of similar to what Pete said. I took the list and I actually listened to the list front to back versus front to back. And I really enjoyed the way that Corey's list flowed. And so I thought that because his list was more is better to my ears as far as how the songs went, I gave the nod to his list on round number 10.
Fair enough. Yeah. I think if Last Kiss hadn't been such an earworm for me, I probably would have leaned more towards Corey.
I was thinking about that, but then I looked at Hallelujah and how strong it was, and I looked at Mrs. Robinson and how strong I thought that was, and Nothing Compares to You. And I chalk Last Kiss that just being that here's that 9th round where there's a little bit of a letdown because I've had 4 or 5 pretty strong rounds. I get a little bit of a letdown, and then I'm coming back.
Fair enough. So let's give our opinions, and we'll go back in order again on Mike, myself, and Tony on the song itself, because we're talking about scoring the round, which is hard to do when it's the same song, but it's a damn good song. So Mike, I'll let you start off on just what you heard in that song when you heard it.
I absolutely love Hurt. I think it really is the send off for Cash in his career. I think when you see this is another one of those Rick Rubin influenced songs that's in this playlist or this mixtape. He does a really good job. I think Johnny Cash owns it. He puts his own spin on it. It's haunting. It's all of those. It's got the emotion that we would want to associate with it. And I think it takes the whole Nine Inch Nails version and kind of strips it away and breaks it down to what music should be, and that's a guy and his guitar and like the vocals that are associated with it. And it's a terrific song, so I have zero problem with the song, and I'm not surprised that song popped up on 2 playlists in the same round, but playlists across multiple rounds throughout this whole process that you pulled together, Mike.
Yeah, it was actually on 3. It was on 3 of the 12, so just behind Along the Watchtower. Strangely enough, all 3 that had it on had it as the last song, which also tells you something, which is this is the way to end a playlist. It's a gut punch in a good way. But still, the way I see this, it's such a transformative song, and I think I've used that word a lot, but it's really appropriate again here. Trent Reznor has said, Johnny Cash owns my song now. And it's really taking what Trent Reznor wrote, which is really self-hate, and turning it into more of a reflection of a tough life. And that's easy to get just by knowing a little bit of Johnny Cash's history. The man lived hard. Every accounting of his life really tells us that. And he was less than a year away from dying, and he probably knew he didn't have much time left. And you can hear it in the way he's singing. So it's just such a good song and such a great performance. I can see why so many people have this on their top covers of all time list, and well deserved in its spot here in the 10th round of our finals. Tony, you get to take us home on this.
Well, I'm just going to ride on your waves because I feel the exact same way. I think that this song, when you put it and look at Johnny Cash's career as a whole, and you see that his career basically wraps with this song. I think it's a perfect reflection of his career and his life. And that's exactly how I view this. And I think the simplicity of his recording is 100% effective. I think it's a beautiful version of the Nine Inch Nails song. So yeah, I'm basically saying the same things that you said, but yeah, it's amazing how I feel that song has become like very iconic, and it's great that some people's introduction to Johnny Cash now is with that song. I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, I also like "In My Life," which was I think on the same album, and it's another great translation of a great song. But yeah, this one's way up there. And gentlemen, we do have a fight in the books. Before I summarize and go through judge scores, let's kick it over to Richard for his post-fight analysis and see if Richard was right once again. Richard, what have you got to say about the post-fight numbers?
All right. Playlist G, Corey wins. Goes against the numbers. Well, sort of. As we kind of pointed out, in these kind of fights where it's not a specific album, but it's like greatest hits, or it's like a mixed bag of different acts and stuff, you're getting the best of the best. And while the numbers seem to favor slightly Playlist B, there were so many ties that it can shift one way or the other based on judges' preferences, song v. song, those kind of instances. So really, you can't say, oh, well, the numbers were totally wrong, because they weren't. These playlists were just that kind of close, where it's just slightly kind of splitting hairs with personal taste and that kind of thing. They're both great, with great songs and everything. Now, my pre-fight is based solely on numbers, no personal opinions and stuff in there. I will say I agree with the judges on this one. If it was personal preference, I think I would gravitate towards G a little bit more. That said, they're both fantastic. I don't really have a lot of analyzing to do here. They did a great job explaining everything. I will say that I think there are more high highs in G, and B is still great. It's just more kind of solid. I will say that it seems to me like G took a few more chances, and I think those chances paid off. And that's awesome, because that's what we're here for. It's not just stating the obvious. So, good job to both of these guys. They were great playlist. Congratulations to Corey. A very well-deserved win. Back to you guys.
Great observations as always, Richard. Thanks again for doing this for us every single album fight without fail. What we have, gentlemen, is a unanimous decision here. And our winner by almost knockout is Corey Farley. We have Mike giving him 96-94 win. Tony a 97-93 win, so definitely much more in Corey's court. And my score is a much closer 96-95, but still giving it to Corey. So, Dan, you did good getting to the finals. You should hold your head up high and maybe go to the hospital. Let's start with me, because I had the closest score. And I'll say, I think personal preference always comes in here. It's the human factor that makes us, be able to do album fight and really enjoy it, because the work is in the analysis. For me, I think there were a few on Dan's list that I just had a personal preference and liked a bit more. Tainted Love maybe is one of them. Killing Me Softly is another one. Just looking at where my 10s are there, it made it a bit closer. But in the end, Corey's list was just monster after monster, and hard to deny that it was just epitomizing what this whole album fight was about, which is give me the best covers of all time and then put them in a mixtape list in a good order. So I can see where Corey won. It was close, but clearly he's the winner. Mike, you had the second least gap. So what's your assessment after the fact here?
No, I think in some ways you hit the order button on the head, right? I think when you look at any of these album fights, when it comes down to order of the songs, that dictates really who ultimately ends up winning. probably 9 times out of 10. You could have a classic song going against a classic song, and if somebody else has something else that is a little bit weaker, and that skews it to their favor in a lot of these battles. But I think for me, even though I think well, really, I chose Smooth Criminal and Watchtower in Dan's playlist or mixtape above the competing songs in Corey's. Especially when you look at Watchtower, that I gave a 10-8 knockdown. Corey's mixtape from top to bottom, was better than the 10 songs that we got from Dan. At the end of the day, when you stack those 10 up against the others, the strength of the scoring and the songs really reflects, I think, how my judging came out, and ultimately all 3 of us came out. So.
Yeah, and Tony, you definitely leaned more in favor of Corey. Why do you think that is?
I think for the same reasons that you guys mentioned. I think Corey's list is just better from top to bottom. I appreciate the chances that Dan took on his list. Smooth Criminal, the 99 Red Balloons. I appreciate that. But I just think when you're going up against Hallelujah, and you're going against Sinead's version of Nothing Compares to You, and you're going against the House of Rising Sun, you're in for a tough time. And I think that's what happened with Dan's list.
Yep, fair enough. And that is a fight. That is what happens. I think, Tony, you've done enough of these now that I'm going to ask you to do our disclaimer. Now's a good time for it.
All right. Well, what we do want to say is that we love all of these songs. We love music, and the fact that one song gets a higher score than another song in this case doesn't mean that it's a bad song. We want you to take our opinions and then go out and listen to the tracks and mold your own opinion. But keep in mind that we love this music so much, and that's the one reason that we like doing this, is because of our love for the music.
Could not have said it better myself. We will be continuing album fights. We are going to be doing our best to be producing one a week for the foreseeable future. We have a lot of great fights lined up. We have a few new judges that are going to be joining us, as well as keeping our veteran judges like Mike and Tony in the mix. And we're really hoping that everybody's enjoying this show, because we're certainly enjoying producing it. I am also going to do my absolute best in the next couple weeks to get the actual brackets with links to the Spotify playlists for these mixtapes up on the Break It Down website, so that folks can actually go in and check out all of the playlists. And I have one monster-long playlist with all of the songs from all of the lists that I also put together in. It is just a fun listen. Hoping to get that on the website to share with listeners coming soon. So thank you, Tony. Thank you, Mike, for joining me this Sunday evening. Looking forward to having you guys on the show again real soon.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
And we're out.